Hey guys, welcome back to another Just No HOA story. In this video, a homeowner association tried to tow my pickup truck 3 times in 1 week despite me not even being part of the HOA. And the first one is titled, Just Following Instructions. It was a sunny Tuesday in June when the whole ordeal began. I am a field technician at an archaeological consulting firm, and we had been hired for a massive highway expansion project that would keep us busy for years. Our normal routine involved surveying sites, digging test pits, collecting artifacts, and filling out endless paperwork documenting every little detail. With the head of the artifact processing department out on parental leave, a recent graduate named Emily had been brought in as a temporary replacement. Emily was determined to make a strong impression, so our company would extend her contract. She scheduled site visits to introduce herself and go over any new protocols. Emily's visit to our site happened to coincide with an unfavorable weather forecast showing heavy rain for the rest of the week. We rely on hand tools and heavy machinery, so downpours make our job far more difficult and hazardous. The meeting was held during our lunch break, and my colleagues were not in the best of moods given the impending storms. Our site supervisor, John, was only half listening as he tried to plan how we would squeeze 3 days of work into the next half day before the rains hit. Emily droned on about inadequate labeling, artifacts caked in mud, and our tendency to write context notes directly on the artifact bags. Then she unveiled her big idea: we should start using flimsy plastic trays to neatly arrange artifacts beside each excavation unit. Those would blow away or break in no time, Bob scoffed. How are we supposed to carry toolboxes, shovels, cameras, and those stupid trays out to the site? Emily dismissively replied, if you need them, you will find a way. John finally tuned back in just as Bob retorted, well, we don't need them, so we won't bother. Emily was incensed and the topic shifted to artifact collection protocols. Our scopes of work always outline which materials should be recovered and which can be discarded on site at the supervisor's discretion. For some reason though, Emily brought this up, perhaps seeking clarification. She went ballistic when the subject of discarding any artifacts came up. You're not experts, she shouted. It's not your place to determine what's significant. I'll have you all fired for theft if I catch you discarding a single item. John had to step in and bring the unproductive meeting to an abrupt end as Emily stormed off to berate the next crew. When I returned on Monday, my colleagues filled me in on Emily's unhinged rant and the surprising new marching orders. She says we are not qualified to judge what is archaeologically relevant? Fine, no problem. From then on, we diligently bagged every single piece of modern debris that emerged from our excavations: candy wrappers, broken glass, beer cans, you name it. By week's end, we had accumulated numerous large trash bags full of artifacts to send to the lab. Emily was too proud to admit her grave mistake and rescind the policy, and to lighten the processing burden, the decision was made to ship everything directly to headquarters for analysis, circumventing our local office. About a month later, Joan's phone rang. It was Emily's boss, Mr. Thompson. John, are you guys a bunch of idiots over there? He growled. Why am I getting bags of literal garbage? John calmly recounted Emily's disastrous visit and pronouncement that only trained specialists could determine an artifact's significance. There was a long pause before Thompson responded, got it. Tell your crews to use their best professional judgment again. I will straighten Emily out. With a sigh of relief, we went back to business as usual. Emily reserved a stern rebuke about respecting field technicians' expertise and years of hard-won experience. While she avoided being fired, her responsibilities were drastically scaled back. We cheered when the regular artifact lab supervisor returned from leave a few months later. In retrospect, Emily's arrogant overreach turned out to be a blessing. It reminded management that the folks getting dirt under their nails day in and day out literally know a thing or two about identifying artifacts. All is well that ends well, I suppose. And yeah, Ripe Stars, if you've ever gotten malicious complaints at your workplace, I would love to hear your story in the comments, especially if it is as satisfying as this one. Either way, the next one is titled, HOA tried to tow my legally permitted pickup truck 3 times in 1 week. So I live in a condo that used to be my mom's in a pretty busy city. Since she was in before an HOA formed and my name was was also on the condo, they could not force me to join this HOA. They hated that I was one of maybe a dozen units that they didn't have control over, but for the most part it never really affected me. Then one day the city finally decided that with all the parking issues they were gonna build lots for most of the buildings in the area that I lived. So instead of street parking, I was gonna be able to pretty reliably park in a spot in front of the building, which for me was great because parking a pickup truck with street parking is a pain. Especially when they have alternate side parking and you need to move from a good spot to probably a crappy one. What they really should have done was just number the spots and give every unit a number so it would be their spot. Instead, it was like the Wild West, but instead of gunfights, it was people arguing about how the spot system should be handled. I get that some things had to be taken into consideration, like handicapped people getting priority near the doors. Now, what ended up being the system was just asking for trouble and was broken from the start. The HOA managed to get some kind of control, but it would only obviously work for those that were members. Now, every person had to have a permit on their car, and to get a permit you had to live in the building. That made perfect sense because the HOA had most of the lot reserved for their members, with the rest of us having a smaller area to park in, usually further away from the building. I was annoyed, but at the end of the day I had a reliable place to park. The HOA also decided to be extra dumb and have their own stickers they would give to HOA members in addition to the permit, showing they lived in the building even though the permit did the exact same thing. I do electrical work and my hours can honestly be a mess because in addition to working for an actual company, I also do my own contract work after hours. It's not uncommon for me to get home very late or sometimes leave early in the morning. And well, on that particular day, it must have been about 5 AM when I went downstairs and saw that right by my car was a tow truck and some lady screaming around. I figured it was about something else, but no, she was right at my car trying to tell the tow truck driver to take it away. Me, what is going on here? That's my truck! Lady, you're illegally parked here, and you need to get this truck out of this spot and make sure he has to pay to get it back. Driver, miss, there's a parking permit on his car for this address. I cannot just tow it away. Lady, but he doesn't have the other pass. Me, who even are you? Just get away from my damn truck. Lady, I'm part of the HOA and you need an HOA pass in order to use this lot. Me, no, I really don't. I need one to park in that designated area. And to be honest, I doubt that is even legal. So unless you want the police involved, just back off, lady. I was able to get in my truck and go to work, pushing the crazy lady out of my mind. She was persistent as hell though, because only 2 days later I had my window open and I heard a commotion. I faced the lot and saw a different tow truck and her voice again. I ran down to once again defend my truck that was legally there. I guess she assumed a different company would do it this time, but they also noticed that I had a legal permit and I explained it to them. This time I sent an email to the HOA president telling him about the lady trying to get my truck towed just because I'm not in the HOA. Just a funny side note, I was not the only person parked there with just a normal permit. But I was the only person driving a Ford pickup instead of a conventionally nice car. So my guess was she just hated my truck and wanted to make up some reason to get rid of it. However, that week was not over yet. This time, I swear she must have been stalking me because I was asleep and dead to the world when she called a third tow truck to try and get my car taken away. This one did not look at the permit or did not understand because they did take my car away. I sent off another email to the HOA president and then called the police. I told them this was the third time in a week that she had tried to get my truck towed and that I was perfectly and legally parked. They agreed that the tow was illegal since I lived in the building and that the lady had to pay and get my truck back. She argued more and finally the HOA president appeared. I assumed he would try and solve the problem, but instead he started defending and lying that the parking lot is only for HOA members and directed him to show the cars with the secondary permits. Turned out that this crazy lady was his wife. A report was filed and they had to get me back my truck, but I was more concerned that she would keep doing this. The officer told her not to do it again and I had a report now against her. I refused to play the game I knew all too well of collecting reports and dealing with the stress. I wanted to do something fast and drastic. I told the officer that was there about the other permits and signs being put up, that the HOA did it themselves, and asked right in front of them how I would go about getting it inspected to see if they had legitimate claim to those spots. I was given a number and they were fuming at me. Even the officer admitted that he never heard of the HOA having reserved spots, which, by the way, the president and I guess his wife had a couple spots right in front of the building just for them. It was way too convenient to be actually allowed, and when I called and got somebody down to check it out, it turned out that I was right and the HOA was in huge trouble. Permits are things that need to be approved and regulated by the government. Their fake ones were not just useless, they were illegal because of the distribution. Also, the illegal putting up of signs in a parking lot was another strike against them. I was just watching them fall apart and having a fantastic time while doing it. By the time they were done being given fines, they owed a ton of money that they did not have. Plus, they were gonna need to go to court because of the severity of their illegal activity. It turns out that if HOA members gave more money, they would magically be given better spots too. They might not have had the money, but they did have some assets. You might be wondering at this point where the actual hell was the owner of the building, or the building manager, or anybody when he was doing all of this. The answer was that this guy not only ran the HOA but also owned the building. He was giving himself unchecked power and was now getting screwed because of it. I know that he had to sell the building because he stopped living there, and I met another guy who was now the owner. I never really saw him because I think he just owns a bunch of big buildings. Even with nothing to say about him, he is way better than the other guy though. And now I can park in peace. And yeah, Ripe Stars, if you still enjoy the HOA stories, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even post some star emojis in the comments if you want to help me beat the damn algorithm. Either way, the next one is titled, My fiancé told her friend group that I'm not the greatest at intercourse, but she is with me for the complete package. Am I wrong for calling off the engagement? So I'm 27 male, have been engaged to my fiancée Amy, 26 female, for a year and was in relationship with her for 5 years. We were due to be married this August. Now I'm also friends with Kylie, or Killy, I'm not sure, 26 female. We have been friends for a very long time, pretty much since we were babies, and we are almost like siblings at this point. This is because her mother and my mother were best friends since they were in high school. Anyways, Kylie is part of the same tight-knit friend group as Amy. I always try to ask Kylie what Amy tells about me, because I know women like to discuss about their boyfriends with their friend group. Kylie is usually tight-lipped, but if she does say anything, she always says how Amy loves me a lot and how Amy is so excited about the marriage. Last month, I hung out with Kylie and her boyfriend at their house. Amy and I usually hang out with them for dinners, but Amy had gone out of town for a couple of days. Anyways, we all got pretty drunk and laughing a lot, and I was begging Kylie to tell me one bad thing Amy has told about me to her friends. After a lot of pleading, Kylie finally said that one thing Amy had joked about was how she had better sex before, and I was not the greatest at this activity, but she was with me for the complete package because she doesn't care about intercourse too much. I was drunk then, so I just laughed it off, but I felt somewhat stung even back then. The next day, when I got sober, I felt extremely stung by this. I thought about a lot when Amy came back from her vacation. I asked her about it casually and she initially denied it and said we always have amazing intercourse and she's always satisfied. I told her it really would not hurt me if she told me the truth and marriage was built on honesty, so I asked her again a couple times. Amy finally admitted that she did in fact say that I was not the best at intercourse to her friend group, but she was just joking about it because I had so many other great qualities she wanted to highlight. I laughed it off initially, but that stung me even more. I could not hide my mood the next couple of days. I felt sad and I felt like crap. Amy apologized a lot and said that she didn't mean what she said. A couple of days later, I told Amy that I could no longer be with her and what she told her friend group hurt me too much. I informed everyone over the next week that I was calling off the wedding. Amy was distraught and tried to convince me multiple times and apologized a lot, but I was too mentally downtrodden. Am I the a-hole here? And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know what you think about this one. Do you think OP is being the a-hole here or not? People on Reddit said, I told her it would not hurt me if she told the truth and that marriage was built on honesty. Well, or maybe not. Another comment said, does it seem weird to anyone else that the OP is begging his friend to tell him bad things his fiancé is saying about him? I'm just trying to imagine that happening in real life. If I thought my fiancé, now wife, had been saying bad things about me behind my back, I would not have married her. This whole thing seems super weird. Another comment said, wow dude, you're definitely not ready to be married. And now guys, we thankfully have an update to the story and it reads like this. I understand I'm insecure. I'm not hiding the fact that I'm insecure. I just wish my fiancé did not tell her friends about our private life, especially to Kylie. If Amy had only told me and not her friends, I would have definitely still felt hurt, but at least this would have only been between us. I definitely wouldn't have broken up with her either and would have even tried to improve our intimate life. I always asked Kylie what Amy thought about me because yes, I was insecure and I wanted to fix any of my flaws before marriage. But I never expected that it would have been about my intimate life. I thought maybe it's a character flaw, maybe I was not romantic enough or not taking her out enough on dates or something along those lines, but never about this particular part of our life. I felt even more hurt after hearing that Amy said I wasn't great at intercourse because Amy never gave me any indication of that in 5 years. But now I'm too ashamed to face her friends, especially Kylie, and Kylie has reached out to me many times, but I'm too embarrassed now to even text her. I understand how my actions have led to a lot of unintended cascading effects. I know Amy is hurting really bad now because she was really excited about our marriage and future. My family is hurting really bad and her family is hurting too. Kylie and Amy are no longer on speaking terms. I heard from one of my friends that Kylie broke up with her boyfriend. I'm not sure if that's related to this incident or not. Anyway, I already asked my company for a transfer to a different state and I'm gonna be moving to a different state in 2 months. I've lost not only my fiancé, but also my best friend who I've known my entire life. And yes, I'm not in the best of places now mentally, but I'll try to start fresh in 2 months. And now Ripestars, we have some further comments and I gotta say, they were quite harsh. But maybe deserved. You will judge in the comments. Anyway, one of the comments said, "You've called off your marriage, alienated your best friend, and now you are moving to a whole new state because your fiancé said you were not great in bed? What the hell? That's wild, man. I hope you find peace within yourself someday, so you don't keep doing this to yourself and to the people who have invested themselves into you emotionally. You're still young, so there's more than enough time to work on yourself." Another person in the comments said, "Please seek the help of a therapist." Breaking off an engagement and moving away is not a normal response to this type of situation. I'm genuinely concerned there are some undiagnosed issues lying beneath the surface. This was petty relationship drama that has cascaded into something else entirely because of your knee-jerk reactions. Please pause and reevaluate with the help of a professional. You're making too many quick decisions based on impulse and based on the last post that's not working out too well for you. The next one is titled, "Psycho Karen attacks army veteran at beach." For the 4th of July, I love going to the beach with my family. For a little background, I am an army veteran, I am married and I have 2 young boys. During my duty, a grenade went off near me and damaged my leg pretty badly. There is not any fancy hospital in that situation, so saving it was not really an option. I got sent back home, honorably discharged, and made a vow to spend as much time with my family as I could. I was fitted for a prosthetic leg, which my 5-year-old son declares as the coolest thing ever. He likes to tell people that his dad is part robot. This year we got to the beach early to try and get a nice spot, and there are some palm trees, and getting a spot under one meant that we got to enjoy the shade it provided. It was hot out and the last thing anybody wanted was a sunburn. While my leg is good for many things, sand is sadly not one of them. It was easier for me once I sat down to just take the leg off and place it next to me. It didn't take 5 minutes before my kids were digging in the sand and wanting me to play with them. It was really starting off to look like a great day, plus it would end in fireworks that, while I don't love, I can handle. My boys seem to adore it. But cue a random woman walking up to us and clearing her throat, in the way that screams, "Pay attention to me, because I'm important." So this woman was very obese, and I'm not shaming anything or anyone, that is important to the story though. She also had 2 kids that seemed around 10ish running around and kicking sand all over people. They were old enough to know that what they were doing was wrong, but to be looked not taught any manners on how to behave. I shall call this woman Karen, despite not really looking like a typical one. Me, can I help you? Karen, you're in my spot. Excuse me? Your spot? That's right, under this tree is where I'm gonna sit with my children. Me, well, we got here first. There are plenty of other spots on the beach. Karen, that is my reserved spot. Just a quick note that this is not a thing in the slightest. This beach and all beaches to my knowledge are first come first serve. If you want a good spot, you can show up early. Me, I highly doubt that. Karen, I'm disabled. My weight qualifies me for special treatment and I need to be in this spot. I am well aware that there are obese people with actual disabilities, and I can also say that I know for a fact that she was not one of them though. First of all, she was not even that big, she could move around perfectly fine while carrying things. She might have had an invisible disability, but even then, there are no disabled spots on the beach. As somebody with only one leg that has a hard time walking in the sand, I would know. Me, I'm disabled too. You don't see me going around trying to steal other people's spots though. That was when she looked closer and saw that I was missing one of my legs. She let out a noise of disgust and said that I should not even be allowed at the beach. I was getting really angry at her, and my wife decided at this point to intervene before I blew up at this lady. She told her that it was the 4th of July and I was a veteran that was actually disabled by fighting for this country. I guess that was the worst thing to say because it just got Karen even angrier for no reason. She started wailing that I was a murderer and the worst kind of person in the world. I don't want to type out her entire rant because of its length and hurtful content, but I will summarize it for you. She said that she was a pacifist and against war and the military because of it. That me being part of the system made me a murderer and a communist. I think she was just spouting random stuff, but whatever, that I should not even be allowed at this kind of holiday or at the beach, showing off my so-called disgusting leg. I have to comment that I find this hilarious considering what holiday we are celebrating. For those not in the US, the 4th of July celebrates our independence from Great Britain. You know, a war fighting. I have no idea what she thought the holiday was about because I never actually got a rebuttal against this woman. After her long-winded rant, she decided to get physical with me. Again, totally not what a pacifist against violence would do. However, this Karen was a complete psycho. She lunged at me and started trying to hit and smack me as I used my arms to hold her off. And then my wife got behind her and started to try and pry her off of me. I was not going to get hurt, but I think Karen realized she would not win a physical fight with me and then decided to play dirty with another tactic instead. She must have just spotted my prosthetic leg and grabbed it before shoving my wife into the sand. She was okay but dazed and could not do anything about Karen running as fast as she could towards the water. I yelled for help, saying that Karen had stolen my leg, getting the attention of a lifeguard. Now we had a lifeguard chasing an obese Karen who was running towards the ocean. She got there first and proceeded to throw my leg as far as she could into the water, the lifeguard running in and getting it before it got lost. He brought it back to me and Karen was following him, now yelling again about stealing her leg and discriminating against her for being disabled. I was so close to exploding like a volcano at her, but the lifeguard beat me to it. Lifeguard, you have to leave right now. Karen, who the hell do you think you are? You cannot tell me what to do. Lifeguard, I'm the head lifeguard and at this beach we have rules. Even ignoring your actions, I've gotten a dozen complaints about your kids kicking sand at people and stealing off blankets. You have only been here half an hour and are not staying one more minute. Karen, you cannot kick me out, I'm disabled. Lifeguard, yeah, and I would bet anything that the car parked in the handicapped spot without any kind of placard is yours, right? You can leave now or I can call the police and tell them what you've been doing here. I bet they would love to arrest somebody trying to steal a prosthetic off a veteran on Independence Day. I guess Karen was scared about the police because she gathered her children quickly and started going to the parking lot. The lifeguard yelling that the kids had to drop the stuff they stole, which they then actually did. Before Karen could escape in the car, the police arrived and I told them exactly what happened and the lifeguard corroborated my statements. I ended up pressing charges on Karen because I would not let her get away with this. Long story short, Karen ended up behind bars, which is exactly where she belongs. And yeah, Ripestars, I gotta say, I would have been so angry if Karen got away with this BS, especially on the 4th of July, which is really a big deal in America, obviously. This especially is not the day where you should attack veterans. Obviously there's no good day to ever do this, but especially on this day, this was probably one of the dumbest things Karen could have done in her life. And yeah guys, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to check out my podcast by searching for Ripestories on all major podcast platforms such as Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts. Furthermore, you can find bonus content by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or by clicking the join button here on YouTube. For a small monthly fee, you will get access to dozens and dozens of exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. Thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you again tomorrow.